Chapter 3793. Chiuchiu swallowed the metal at an extremely fast speed. Lu Ming could only watch as the planet shrank in size. Of course, this was because the planet was small to begin with, just like a meteorite. In just half a month, the entire planet had been swallowed by Chiuchiu, leaving nothing behind. After swallowing the entire planet, Chiuchiu's body emitted a metallic luster as it floated in the air, motionless. Lu Ming could tell at a glance that Chiuchiu was about to evolve. Originally, Chiuchiu had been close to evolving after eating some Purple Moon Godly Metal and Purple Moon Mother Steel. It only needed a little more time to completely refine the energy of the Purple Moon Mother Steel. Then it would definitely evolve and break through to the Divine Emperor realm. But now, after swallowing the entire strange metal planet, Chiuchiu immediately began to evolve. That was because its accumulation was just too strong, so strong that it was about to overflow. This guy. Lu Ming smiled bitterly. He couldn't evolve here because the gale here was too weak. His cultivation speed was very slow. Lu Ming wanted to continue towards the center of the Gale Star River. Lu Ming took out a chain-shaped divine tool and wrapped it around Chiuchiu, pulling it towards the depths of the Gale Star River. There were no other abnormalities along the way. In truth, there weren't many people who ventured into the Gale Star River to search for treasures because it was too dangerous. Half a month later, Lu Ming brought Chiuchiu and flew for an unknown distance. They were already very close to the center of the Gale Star River. The gale here was shockingly strong. When it hit Lu Ming's skin was directly cut open, leaving wounds on Lu Ming's body. And this was the result of Lu Ming resisting with all his strength. From this, it could be seen how powerful the gale here was. Even a quasi-emperor would be turned to ashes in an instant. Only experts above the Divine Emperor realm could stay here. Let's do it here! Lu Ming stopped and put Chiuchiu to the side. The gale blew against Chiuchiu, making clanging sounds, but it didn't affect Chiuchiu in the slightest. Lu Ming sat cross-legged in the air. Borrowing the power of the strong winds, he stimulated his potential and quietly cultivated. The power of the gale made Lu Ming feel threatened at all times. Of course, this also made it easier to stimulate his potential. The potential stored in all the cells in his body was slowly being stimulated. His body was slowly transforming. Time passed day by day. In the blink of an eye, Lu Ming had been in the Gale Galaxy for a year and a half. On this day, Lu Ming suddenly opened his eyes. His gaze was like a divine sword as his aura soared into the sky. Whoosh! Lu Ming suddenly rushed up and punched out with both fists. The void shook violently, and an endless gale was driven by the fist energy, sweeping in all directions like a hurricane. In the next moment, Lu Ming stopped. His aura also went into hiding. 7th level Divine Monarch. Entering for a year and a half, Lu Ming's cultivation broke through, breaking through from level 6 Divine Lord to level 7 Divine Lord. His combat power skyrocketed. This speed was already very astonishing. Of course, Lu Ming's current cultivation was extraordinary. As long as there was enough energy and enough pressure on him, his cultivation could continuously increase. Chiuchiu's aura is also much stronger. It's probably going to complete its evolution soon too. Lu Ming looked at Chiuchiu, revealing a look of anticipation. Compared to more than a year ago, Chiuchiu's size had become much larger. Its aura was also much stronger, showing signs of rushing out. Lu Ming knew that Chiuchiu was also about to complete its evolution. Now was not the time to move. Lu Ming originally wanted to bring Chiuchiu and continue deeper into the Gale Galaxy. Because as his cultivation broke through, the gale here no longer pressured him enough. He needed to find stronger gale to stimulate his potential. But now, he could only wait for Chiuchiu to evolve before moving forward. Let's refine the gravity pearl first. Lu Ming's heart stirred. After breaking through to the 7th level Divine Lord realm, could he refine one more gravity pearl? Every additional gravity pearl, once activated, would cause the gravity to skyrocket. It would also be of great help to Lu Ming's combat strength. Lu Ming began to blood bond with the 3rd gravity pearl. It really works! A few days later, Lu Ming felt that it was indeed possible. Lu Ming continued to work hard. After a few more days, Lu Ming succeeded in blood bonding. Buzz, buzz, buzz. Lu Ming activated the gravity pearls. 3 gravity pearls flew high into the sky. A powerful gravity erupted. Under the terrifying gravity, space constantly distorted as if it could not withstand it. The powerful gale was also greatly affected. Under the effect of gravity, its speed became extremely slow. What a powerful gravity! Compared to when I had 2 gravity pearls, the gravity has increased by 10 times. Lu Ming was overjoyed. Sure enough, every time he refined an additional gravity orb, the gravity would be 10 times stronger than before. Now, with 3 gravity pearls at the same time, the gravity was terrifying. Ordinary emperors would definitely die under the pressure. Even cultivators of the first godly emperor layer would be injured under the pressure of the gravity pearls. Before, when he used 2 gravity pearls at the same time, he could affect cultivators of the first godly emperor layer. Now, with 3 gravity pearls at the same time, a cultivator of the first godly emperor layer would be seriously injured. With the 3 gravity pearls, Lu Ming's combat ability had increased by a huge margin. It was much more powerful than before. At that moment, Lu Ming could easily kill ordinary cultivators of the first godly emperor layer. Even if he encountered cultivators of the second godly desolate layer like the old man, he could still fight against them. If he cooperated with Chiu, killing them wouldn't be difficult. Of course, that was only before Chiu had broken through. After that, there was no need to talk about it. I wonder if I can refine 4 gravity pearls? Lu Ming's heart was burning with excitement. He looked at the 4th gravity pearl. With each additional gravity pearl, the gravity was 10 times stronger. If he could refine the 4th one, how terrifying would the gravity be? He could easily kill a cultivator of the first godly emperor layer. However, when Lu Ming tried to refine the 4th gravity pearl, it felt like a gigantic planet was in front of him. He couldn't move it at all. Not to mention refining it. Lu Ming had the feeling that even if he broke through to the 8th godly emperor layer, he wouldn't be able to refine the 4th gravity pearl. Lu Ming had no choice but to give up on that idea. Boom! At that instant, a terrifying aura burst out from the crowd. It came from Chiu. Chiu was about to break through. Lu Ming was overjoyed. At that moment, Chiu's chi was terrifying. His body kept moving. Sometimes he turned into a sword, sometimes he turned into a saber, sometimes he turned into a silver spear. They were all the treasures Chiu had absorbed. As time passed, Chiu's chi became stronger and stronger. In the end, it seemed like it had broken through a certain threshold. A terrifying oppressive energy exploded. Imperial-level oppressive energy. Chiu had broken through to the godly emperor layer. He now had the strength of the first godly emperor layer. Chapter 3794. Chiu's cultivation had reached the first layer of the godly emperor realm. However, Chiu's chi didn't stop there. It continued to rise. Can it continue to break through? Lu Ming's eyes lit up. Previously, Chiu had broken through several levels at once, but that was when its cultivation was still low, and its accumulation was too strong. But could it continue to rise in the godly emperor realm? Lu Ming knew that Chiu's accumulation this time was also very strong. The purple moon mother steel was enough for it to break through, and then it had swallowed an entire planet. How strong was its energy? It was unimaginable. Even if it could continue to break through, it wasn't impossible. Lu Ming waited patiently. Chiu's chi grew stronger and stronger. In the blink of an eye, another month passed. Chiu's chi had reached its peak. Boom! Chiu's chi suddenly rose by another level. Second layer of the godly emperor realm. Chiu had really broken through to the second layer of the godly emperor realm. After reaching the second layer of the godly emperor realm, Chiu's chi finally stabilized. After a while, the balloon's chi disappeared and it flew happily toward Lu Ming. Chiu, you're amazing! You've reached the second layer of the godly emperor realm. Lu Ming pretended to be envious. In fact, he really was envious. He had broken through quickly enough, but Chiu was even more heaven-defying. As long as it had good treasures, its cultivation would soar like a rocket. It was much faster than him. Chiu had reached the second layer of the godly emperor realm, so he didn't know how strong it was. In any case, Lu Ming couldn't defeat it even if he used all his tricks. It would be a great help to Lu Ming. Let's go. Let's keep going, Lu Ming said to Chiu. He had made a promise of 3 years to the various geniuses. There was still more than a year left. He wanted to use this time to increase his cultivation and see if he could break through to the 8th layer of the godly emperor realm. Of course, the higher one's cultivation was, the harder it was to break through. It was almost impossible to break through to the 8th layer of the godly emperor realm in a year. But it was better to improve a little, right? Chiu turned back into a bracelet and wore it on Lu Ming's wrist. The two of them flew together. This place was already close to the center of the Gale Galaxy. As the two of them went deeper, the power of the Gale grew stronger. However, it still hadn't met Lu Ming's requirements. Lu Ming wanted to go deeper. Swoosh! At this moment, 2 beams of divine light came from the other side and flew toward the center of the Gale Galaxy. They were 2 middle-aged men. Both of them were wearing fiery red armor. The armor was sparkling, blocking the strong wind outside. A cultivator of the second godly emperor layer and a cultivator of the first. Lu Ming's heart stirred as he sensed their cultivation bases. The 2 middle-aged men also saw Lu Ming, and their eyes were filled with curiosity. A 7th-level Divine Lord person is actually able to walk until here too. It's truly a miracle. He probably has treasures on him, right? Don't be a busybody. The Zephyr Palace is about to be broken. Let's get down to business first. The two of them exchanged a few words in secret. Then, they did not linger and quickly left. However, Lu Ming's ears were extremely sharp, especially since he had cultivated the celestial hearing ability. He heard their conversation clearly. Zephyr Palace? What's that? Could it be some kind of historical remnant of the Gale Galaxy? Lu Ming's mind raced. In the end, he decided to follow them. Lu Ming restrained his aura and flew behind the 2 middle-aged men. 2 hours later, Lu Ming saw 2 other groups of people flying in the same direction. Obviously, they were also heading for the Zephyr Palace. Suddenly, Lu Ming saw a huge object suspended in the starry sky in front of him. This huge object was completely made of stone. From afar, it looked like a stone palace. However, the appearance of this stone palace was extremely different from that of the outside world. It looked like a palace, but there was no entrance or exit. There were no doors or windows. It looked like a huge circular fortress. There were many people around the fortress. At a glance, there were dozens of people. There was no doubt that these people were all divine emperors. Boom! Suddenly, a great battle broke out on one side of the fortress. Divine light filled the sky, and at the same time, angry roars were heard. We found the weak point of the Zephyr Palace, and we also spent a lot of effort to break it. You want to take advantage of us? No way! Someone shouted. Haha, the Zephyr Palace is not yours. It's a public area. Anyone who sees it has a share. Who can you blame for breaking the fortress? Someone responded coldly. Shameless! The people from before roared and the battle became more intense. However, after a while, the battle stopped. Because many people had surrounded them. Those who were fighting were obviously afraid of being taken advantage of and did not dare to continue fighting. Since everyone has found it, it's impossible for the Xinyuan pirate group to monopolize it. The news was leaked because there was a traitor in the Xinyuan pirate group. This is your own business. Since we're all here, we can't go back empty-handed. How about this? The Xinyuan pirate group has not completely broken the Zephyr Palace. Next, we'll work together to break the Zephyr Palace. We'll talk about the treasures inside with our strength. Everyone talked at once and came up with a plan. The people of the Xinyuan pirate group looked extremely gloomy, But they knew that since so many experts had come, it was impossible for them to monopolize it with their strength alone. They could only follow the plan. So they're all from the interstellar pirates? Lu Ming's heart skipped a beat. It made sense. The Zephyr galaxy was located in a relatively remote area without any powerful forces around. It was an area where the interstellar pirates could easily survive and operate. It was normal for this place to attract many interstellar pirates. Lu Ming had a few thoughts in his mind as he approached slowly. As soon as Lu Ming approached, pairs of eyes immediately looked at Lu Ming. Hey, it's a Divine Lord kid! It's rare for a Divine Lord to be able to come here. He probably has a treasure that can withstand the Zephyr Palace. Many people were curious. Of course, there were also people who shouted, Kid, what are you doing here as a Divine Lord? Why don't you get lost? Isn't there a share here? Why can't I be here? Lu Ming replied. Ha ha ha, everyone has a share. It also requires strength and qualifications. You're just a Divine Lord kid, what strength do you have? I'll give you one last chance. If you don't get lost, you'll stay here forever. It was the same person, a burly man with a scar on his face, who stared coldly at Lu Ming. Oh, is that so? In that case, you're not qualified to be here at all. Why don't you get lost? Lu Ming scolded lightly. This burly man with the scar was merely a first-level Divine Lord. Lu Ming did not care about a first-level Divine Lord from an interstellar pirate group. Chapter 3795. Lu Ming's words made the others stunned. Lu Ming actually dared to speak to a first-level Divine Lord expert like this. Was he courting death? The scar-faced man's eyes burst with icy killing intent. Lu Ming's words were clearly looking down on him. He was clearly trash and had no qualifications to be here. Preposterous. Kid, listening to your words, do you think that you're stronger than me? The scar-faced man approached Lu Ming and said with a cold smile. You can say that. Lu Ming replied indifferently. Ha ha! A burst of loud laughter came from the scene. Everyone at the scene laughed heartily, looking at Lu Ming as if he was a fool. Lu Ming, a 7th-level Divine Lord brat, actually said that he was stronger than the scar-faced man? Did he know how strong Divine Emperors were? How terrifying? Most likely, he completely did not know how terrifying Divine Emperors were. The gap between a 7th-level Divine Lord and a 1st-level Divine Lord was even greater than some chasm. Such a laughable thing could even be said. Shouldn't they laugh? Of course they should laugh. Especially the scar-faced man, he even laughed until tears came out. I even thought that you were some heavenly pride. Turns out that you're a fool. Fool, Grandpa will send you on your way now. The scar-faced man shouted coldly, a blade chopping towards Lu Ming's head, wanting to behead Lu Ming in one move. The blade light was quick, arriving above Lu Ming's head in a twinkle. Lu Ming's expression did not change in the slightest, a fist slamming out. He had long triggered the battle character art to increase his combat strength by 5 times. With a punch slamming out, the void exploded. Terrifying gales were driven by the fist force, condensing together, becoming a part of the fist force. Clang! Lu Ming's fist slammed into the scar-faced man's battle blade. The battle blade trembled crazily, then with a bang, it exploded. The berserk fist force did not stop, continuing to rumble towards the scar-faced man. The scar-faced man could no longer laugh. The smile on his face froze, replaced by astonishment. At the critical moment, he let out a roar and retreated madly. Both of his hands blasted forward, hoping to block Lu Ming's attack. However, a cracking sound could be heard as the sound of bones breaking rang out. His arms had been broken by Lu Ming, and his body was sent flying back. He slammed into the stone fortress, causing it to shake violently. Nothing happened to the fortress, but the scarred man spat out a large mouthful of blood. His face was deathly pale, and his aura was weak. He had suffered heavy injuries. The scene was silent. Everyone's smiles disappeared and were replaced with astonishment and disbelief. The knife-scarred man had actually been defeated. Moreover, He had been defeated so easily by Lu Ming in one move. There was no way to block it at all. It was a complete suppression. Was this still the cultivation of a 7th-level Divine Lord? Everyone stared blankly at Lu Ming. They finally understood what Lu Ming's words meant. Lu Ming had said that the knife-scarred man wasn't qualified, but he was. He was indeed qualified. The knife-scarred man had said that Lu Ming wasn't qualified. That was a complete joke. Lu Ming had used his strength to prove that point. Now, do I have the qualifications? Lu Ming looked like he was talking to the knife-scarred man, but he was actually talking to the others. Yes, you are. The knife-scarred man coughed up blood and nodded. He was really scared to death. His heart was filled with fear. In the previous move, Lu Ming's ability was not something that he could resist. He knew he had really kicked an iron plate. How strong? A 7th-level Divine Lord is already that strong. I've never seen anyone like that before. You're qualified. Hee hee, said some people. Some people's eyes were glittering as they stared at Lu Ming. It was unknown what they were thinking. There weren't only cultivators of the first godly emperor layer there. There were even stronger cultivators. They were all pirates. Even though they were shocked by Lu Ming's talent, they weren't afraid of Lu Ming. Lu Ming could defeat cultivators of the first godly emperor layer, but could he defeat cultivators of the second godly emperor layer? They didn't believe it. But Lu Ming was already qualified to compete with them for the treasures. Let's discuss how to break the Zephyr Temple, suggested someone. The Zephyr Temple is covered by a strange stone. With our strength, we can't break it. But no matter how hard something is, it has a weakness. The Xian Yuan pirate group found the weakness and broke through 80% of it. As for the remaining 20%, if we join hands, we'll be able to break it quickly, said a silver-haired old man. That silver-haired old man had some prestige among the pirates. He was obviously very strong. Commander Ian is right. Let's do that. I have no objection, said the others. Only the Xian Yuan pirate group pulled a long face. But in front of so many strong cultivators, they had no choice but to agree. After they finished discussing, they moved towards the weak point. In another direction, Lu Ming saw a gigantic hole in the wall. There were cracks on the sides of the hole. Looking through the hole, Lu Ming saw that there was still a wall inside. The wall was surprisingly thick, at least 10,000 meters thick. They had already broken through 8,000 meters, there were still 2,000 meters left. Attack! Shouted the silver-haired old man. He took the initiative to attack. He raised his finger, and a silver finger appeared. It looked like it was made of silver. It moved towards the remaining 2,000 meters of the wall. That's the strength of the third godly emperor layer. No, it's even stronger. When the silver-haired old man attacked, Lu Ming was astonished. The silver-haired old man's strength was unfathomable. His godly strength was incredible. Lu Ming was astonished. He was much stronger than the old man who had broken through to the second godly emperor layer. He probably had the strength of the third godly emperor layer. As expected, there were terrifying cultivators among those people. Attack! The others also attacked at the same time, unleashing all sorts of attacks that slammed into the remaining 2,000-meter thick wall. Boom, boom, boom! The wall kept exploding and shaking. Pieces of broken stones started falling down. That was because this was the weak point. If it had been any other wall, they wouldn't have been able to break it. However, the remaining 2,000 meters of the wall wasn't that easy to break. They kept attacking for half an hour, and then they stopped. Attacking continuously consumed a lot of godly strength. Besides, the people there all had their own plans. They didn't want to exhaust their godly strength. When they had used half of their godly strength, they had to stop and recover. Everyone silently took out pills that could replenish their divine power and consumed them to recover. After a few hours, they had rested enough and started attacking again. Just like that, a few days later, there were only 100 meters left of the 2,000-meter stone wall. Soon, it would be broken through. At that moment, they heard some whistling sounds in the distance. A dozen silhouettes flew over. Everyone's movements involuntarily stopped. "It's you!" Some people's eyes twinkled as they recognized those people. They were famous pirates. Chapter 3796. "It's him!" Lu Ming's eyes twinkled. Among the dozen people who had arrived, Lu Ming recognized one of them. It was the old man with the conical face who had escaped before. The old man with the conical face had also noticed Lu Ming. He was fixedly staring at Lu Ming. His eyes were filled with hatred and murderous intentions. "Little boy, I didn't think that you would be here." "Very good, very good." The old man with the conical face was staring at Lu Ming. His voice was ice cold. Everybody could hear that his voice was filled with murderous intentions. "Tai Xiong, that little boy killed 5 godly emperors from the Iron Chain pirates?" The old man with the conical face was called Tai Xiong. Next to him was a middle-aged man with a long face. "Indeed, that little bastard. Even though his cultivation level is not high, he is extremely strong. He can fight against cultivators of the second godly emperor layer." "Don't be careless," warned Tai Xiong. His voice was filled with hatred. The people around Lu Ming weren't surprised. They just glanced at Lu Ming. Lu Ming had defeated the scar-faced man in one move. He had already shown how strong he was. It was normal for him to be able to kill 5 strong cultivators of the Iron Chain pirates. Interesting. "Tai Xiong, what you said before, you have to keep your word," said the middle-aged man. "I will keep my word. I swear on my life essence," said Tai Xiong. "All right," nodded the middle-aged man. He glanced at the crowd and said, "Everybody, we have a grudge against this little boy. Who is his friend? I don't know him. I have nothing to do with you." The people around Lu Ming burst into laughter and moved away from Lu Ming. They didn't know Lu Ming. Of course, they wouldn't help Lu Ming. They hoped that Lu Ming and Tai Xiong would fight to the death so that they would have fewer competitors. These people retreated silently. Lu Ming was the only one left in the spacious space. Those people stopped attacking the stone wall for the time being. They looked like they were watching a good show. "Very good!" The horse-faced middle-aged man, Tai Xiong, revealed a sinister smile. In the next moment, figures flickered as Tai Xiong, the horse-faced middle-aged man, and the others surrounded Lu Ming. Powerful auras as heavy as a mountain pressed down on Lu Ming. 3 cultivators of the second godly emperor layer and 7 cultivators of the first godly emperor layer. No wonder they're so confident. Lu Ming smiled faintly in his heart. The other party did not try to hide anything. He could easily sense the cultivation levels of these people. Since they knew Lu Ming was strong enough to defeat Tai Xiong, they were confident that they could kill Lu Ming because there were 3 cultivators of the second godly emperor layer. After all, Lu Ming had barely defeated Tai Xiong. He was only a little bit stronger than Tai Xiong. They had 3 cultivators of the second godly emperor layer, so killing Lu Ming was more than enough. Besides, there were 7 cultivators of the first godly emperor layer. They never thought that Lu Ming's battle prowess had already skyrocketed. It was not easy to increase one's battle prowess and cultivation level after reaching the godly emperor layer. It had been hundreds of millions of years. How long had it been? It had only been a year. How could he have broken through in such a short period of time? "Little boy, I won't let you die so easily. I will seal your cultivation level and put you in the wind. I will make you suffer the pain of the wind cutting your body." Tai Xiong's face was extremely ferocious, and there was a hint of excitement. It was as if he had already seen Lu Ming's miserable state of being sliced by the strong wind. "That's a good idea. Unfortunately, reality is cruel. Do you know that?" Lu Ming smiled faintly. Then, with a sudden movement, he charged toward Tai Xiong. Boom! Boom! As soon as he rushed out, Lu Ming threw out a few hundred punches. The terrifying fist force gathered together like a stormy sea, blasting towards Tai Xiong. However, Tai Xiong was already prepared. His metal spear pierced through the air and collided with Lu Ming's fist strength. However, as soon as they started fighting, Tai Xiong's expression changed. "You broke through to the godly emperor layer!" shouted Tai Xiong furiously. "Die! Die!" At the same time, the horse-faced man and the others also attacked. 2 cultivators of the second godly emperor layer and 7 cultivators of the first godly emperor layer attacked Lu Ming from all directions. So many strong cultivators joining hands was terrifying. Any other cultivator of the second godly emperor layer would have been seriously injured. Lu Ming obviously wouldn't underestimate them. He released forbidden strength into the gravity pearls. Bzzz. 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 The 3 gravity pearls lit up and rose up in the air. Then, a terrifying gravity surrounded the horse-faced man, Tai Xiong and the others. 3 gravity pearls appeared at the same time. The 7 cultivators of the first godly emperor layer were affected the most. Their faces changed drastically, and their bodies emitted cracking sounds. Their bones were broken under the pressure of the gravity pearls. At the same time, their muscles, blood, internal organs, and even their souls were affected. When the gravity reached a certain level, even the smallest particles could be affected. The 7 cultivators of the first godly emperor realm were severely injured in an instant. Their secret skills were on the verge of collapsing under the pressure of gravity. Before they could reach Lu Ming, their attacks dissipated. The horse-faced man, Tai Xiong and the others of the second godly emperor layer were in a much better situation, but they were also affected. Their attacks became weaker, and Lu Ming easily blocked them. "Die!" Lu Ming shouted and continued to attack Tai Xiong. His attacks were like a tide. "Shit, the gravity is so strong." Tai Xiong's expression was extremely ugly. He waved his long spear with all his might and fought with Lu Ming. In a flash, they exchanged more than 10 attacks. Lu Ming actually faintly gained the upper hand and forced Tai Xiong to retreat. The last time Lu Ming fought with Tai Xiong, Lu Ming still needed to rely on Qiu to transform into a silver spear to fight with Tai Xiong and defeat him in the end. But in this battle, Lu Ming no longer needed to rely on Qiu to fight with Tai Xiong and even gain the upper hand. "Retreat, let's retreat," Tai Xiong roared. He thought of Lu Ming's metal life form. Lu Ming's metal life form had not been used yet, but it was already so strong. If it was used, how strong would it be? He was a little scared. "Retreat for what? He is strong, but if we join hands, we can kill him," shouted the horse-faced man. He held 2 sabers in his hands and slashed out with all his strength, cutting through the gravity and slashing towards Lu Ming. The fighting strength that Lu Ming displayed was similar to what Tai Xiong had described before. If the 3 of them joined hands, they would be able to defeat or even kill Lu Ming. No, he still has a trump card that he hasn't used yet. Tai Xiong shouted frantically, extremely anxious. After exchanging a move with Lu Ming, he wanted to retreat. This time, Lu Ming had exceeded his expectations. He did not expect that in just over a year, Lu Ming's fighting strength would increase explosively again. He knew that if they joined hands, they would no longer be a match for Lu Ming. "It's too late to leave now," Lu Ming said coldly. Then, the ball on his wrist wriggled and turned into a silver spear. Chapter 3797. On Lu Ming's wrist, Qiu turned into a silver spear and was held in Lu Ming's hand. Whoosh! A moonlight spear light burst out. It was incomparably dazzling, as if it had pierced through the starry sky and pierced towards Tai Xiong. Fast, it was extremely fast. In a flash, it arrived in front of Tai Xiong. Tai Xiong's expression changed drastically. He roared furiously and released all his strength. He poured all his divine power into the metal spear and stabbed it with all his might, hoping to block the moonlight spear light. Clang! The tip of the spear and the tip of the spear collided. Then, the tip of the metal spear shattered at a speed visible to the naked eye. Then, the entire spear shattered in an instant. Poof! The moonlight spear light didn't stop, piercing through Tai Xiong's forehead. "How is this possible?" Tai Xiong roared furiously. His eyes were wide open and his face was filled with disbelief. Originally, He thought that even if Lu Ming's strength had increased greatly, even if he had the help of the metal life form, even if he was stronger than him, there should be a limit to his strength. How could he have killed him in one move? The light in his eyes dimmed. He couldn't figure it out until he died. Of course, he didn't know that last time. Qiuqiu was only at the quasi-emperor realm. Now, he was already at the second godly emperor realm. His strength had undergone an earth-shattering change. Killing him would only take one move. Besides, Lu Ming had told Qiuqiu not to use his full strength, only a part of his strength. Along the way, Lu Ming understood that he had to keep a trump card at all times. It could save his life at a critical moment. Unless it was absolutely necessary, he couldn't easily expose all his trump cards. As long as he could kill Tai Xiong, that was enough. How is this possible? Lu Ming had killed Tai Xiong in one move. The horse-faced middle-aged man and the others were stunned. For a moment, they couldn't wrap their heads around it. Lu Ming wouldn't give them a chance. Whoosh! Whoosh! 2 more spear lights burst forth, piercing towards the horse-faced middle-aged man and the other cultivator of the second godly emperor realm. The 2 of them seemed to have woken up from a dream. They hurriedly defended themselves, but it was too late. How much strength could they use in such a hurry? Actually, it was useless even if they could use their full strength, not to mention only a little bit of strength. Puff! The moonlight spear light flew past, and the horse-faced middle-aged man and the other 2 followed in Tai Xiong's footsteps. They were also pierced by the spear light and died on the spot. Let's go! The 7 cultivators of the first godly emperor layer were scared out of their wits. They started running away in all directions. Since you've already made your move, you'll have to pay the price for what you've done. Stay here! A cold and emotionless voice sounded as 7 moonlight spear lights tore through the void. The 7 cultivators of the first godly emperor layer had been injured by the gravity, so they were all killed by the moonlight spear. Lu Ming did not show any mercy, nor did he intend to let these people off. These people were all interstellar pirates. Their methods were cruel and they deserved to die. Another reason was that they were surrounded by interstellar pirates. These people bullied the weak and feared the strong. Lu Ming wanted to display his strength to intimidate these people. He wanted them to be wary of him and not dare to provoke him. This would save a lot of trouble in the future. As expected, when the people around saw that Lu Ming had killed so many cultivators, their faces were incomparably dignified. Many of them even looked terrified. Especially the scar-faced man who had provoked Lu Ming before. He was shaking from head to toe, and his face was deathly pale. Now, he finally knew what kind of person he had provoked. It was simply a blessing from his ancestors that he was able to survive. What a terrifying young man. Who is this person? He has so many treasures and a powerful metal life form with him. I'm afraid he's a genius from a powerful clan. Absolutely. These people secretly discussed and decided not to provoke Lu Ming. Haha, little brother, your fighting strength is really amazing. I admire you. Tai Xiong and the others were blind to provoke you. They really deserve to die. The silver-haired old man burst into laughter, making the atmosphere a little better. Let's continue breaking the wall, Lu Ming said. All right, let's continue, the silver-haired old man said. They continued to break the wall, but Gravity's heart had already changed. He now regarded Lu Ming, a divine lord realm existence, as someone that could not be provoked. The remaining 100-some meters thick wall did not stop Lu Ming's group for long. Not long after, with a boom, the stone wall was pierced through, revealing the dark space inside. This was the interior of Gale Temple. Everyone looked at each other, and then flew into the dark space in unison. Of course, they did not dare to be careless. Divine power covered their bodies and defensive divine artifacts revolved around them, ready to fight at any moment. Lu Ming had Qiuqiu transform into a suit of armor and then followed the others into the dark space. After flying in, they discovered that there were stone palaces with several passages leading in different directions. Besides this, they did not encounter any other dangers. I'll go left. I'll go right. To the center. Everyone chose a passage according to their wishes and flew in. Lu Ming casually chose the leftmost passage. The passage went straight ahead and was surrounded by stone walls. Someone had tried it and found that the walls were indestructible. After walking for half an hour, they reached the end and arrived at a vast land. On this piece of land, strong winds howled, containing a strong gale. There's actually such a land here. Could this be the core of Gale Temple? Someone asked curiously. This land was undulating. From afar, there were mountain ranges. It was no different from a world. However, not a single blade of grass grew here. There were no living creatures. It was dead silent. Everyone flew out and spread out to explore this area to see if they could find any treasures. However, after searching for a while, they found nothing. There's nothing here. How unlucky. It seems that we've made a wasted trip this time. Someone cursed in a low voice. Ah! As if in response to that person's words, a shrill scream came from afar. As soon as the scream sounded, it disappeared. Everyone's expression changed, especially the person who spoke. He was so scared that he trembled. Ah! Another scream rang out, coming from their right. From the sound of it, it was not the same person as the previous one. What's over there? Someone asked with a pale face. However, no one answered him. They also wanted to know what it was. Boom! Then, a violent explosion came from that direction. Beams of resplendent light shot into the sky. Obviously, there was a fierce battle over there. However, the battle did not last very long. It ended in just a few breaths. How is it? Everyone's expression was solemn. How could the battle end so quickly? Judging from the direction, it should be a group of people who took another passage. There were actually experts among them. Could they have been eliminated so quickly? Chapter 3798. That thought flashed through everyone's mind, but no one dared to go over and check. Some of them even wanted to leave this place. Look, someone is flying over there! Suddenly, someone shouted. Sure enough, some people were flying over from the direction of the battle just now. They were the people who parted ways with them just now. But now, there were only about 10 of them left. What happened just now? What happened over there? Someone quickly asked. A monster attacked us just now. Among the people flying over, someone answered. A monster? What monster? Someone quickly asked. I'm not sure. It came and went without a trace like a gust of wind. It killed several of us in succession. We attacked that monster together, but that monster retreated silently. Someone replied. It retreated? Everyone's eyes flickered. If it was repelled, it meant that its strength was not very strong. Everyone was slightly relieved. In addition, with so many people gathered together, they became much bolder. In the end, no one retreated. Instead, they planned to continue exploring. They had spent so much effort to get here. How could they be willing to leave without exploring properly? Everyone continued to fly toward the center of this land. Nothing unusual happened next, and they did not encounter any monsters. Everyone was relieved, thinking that the monster was afraid of them. Ah! Suddenly, a miserable scream came from the gust of wind. It was still coming from the right. Everyone's expression suddenly changed. It's another group of people. They encountered that monster! Someone exclaimed. Should we go over and rescue them? Someone asked. No need. Let's wait and see. But then, a series of miserable screams sounded. 7 or 8 miserable screams sounded in a row, and they did not stop. This time, everyone's expression changed. The situation was different from before. Why were there so many miserable screams in a row? Why didn't the people in that direction join forces? Previously, they were divided into 3 groups. Each group had more than a dozen people, and there were experts among them. They were definitely not weak. While everyone was thinking, a few more miserable screams were heard. At the same time, there was a roar from that direction, a burst of dazzling divine light, and a rumbling sound, However, that did not stop the miserable screams. After a while, there were more miserable screams. Then, everyone saw a divine light flying over from that direction. "It's Commander Een!" someone exclaimed. The figure that flew over was the silver-haired old man. His strength was unfathomable. However, at this moment, the silver-haired old man was in a very sorry state. His silver hair was disheveled and there were several wounds on his body. Everyone was shocked. Even the silver-haired old man was injured. What had they encountered? The silver-haired old man's eyes lit up when he saw Lu Ming and the others. He flew towards Lu Ming and the others. "Let's gather!" someone shouted loudly. They didn't dare to relax. Everyone gathered together and formed a circle. They were on high alert. The silver-haired old man rushed into the crowd and gathered with them. "Commander Een, why are you alone? Where are the others?" someone asked. "Everyone else is dead," the silver-haired old man said. "What?" Everyone was shocked. "What exactly did you encounter?" Someone revealed a look of fear. "It's a monster. It's like a gale, as if it was formed by the wind. It comes and goes without a trace. It's strange and unpredictable. It's impossible to kill," the silver-haired old man said with a grave expression. "Condensed from strong winds? Can't kill him? Is there anything in the world that can't be killed?" Everyone was astonished. They couldn't believe it. "It's here," said the silver-haired old man suddenly. Everyone was astonished. They hastily looked around, but they didn't see anything. However, the strong wind in the surroundings suddenly became much stronger. Whoosh, 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 a strong wind started blowing, whistling and whistling. At the same time, a scorching hot chi appeared. Everyone stared intently at their surroundings, preparing their defenses to the fullest. "Aha!" Suddenly, a cultivator of the first godly emperor layer gave a horrible shriek. Blood gushed out of his body and his body exploded into pieces. Flames appeared and burned. A cultivator of the first godly emperor layer had died tragically. "Monster!" The crowd saw a silhouette condensed from strong winds. It was flickering. That cultivator of the first godly emperor layer had been killed by that silhouette. "Kill him!" Immediately, 5 or 6 people attacked, unleashing their most powerful secret techniques. 5 or 6 attacks slammed into the figure, and a boom rang out as the figure was blasted into pieces. But it was useless. The wind gathered again, and the silhouette appeared again. In a flash, it merged with the wind and disappeared. Whoosh, whoosh, the wind was whistling, and it was scorching hot. However, the crowd's hearts were ice cold. They couldn't kill him. They really couldn't kill him. That monster didn't have a body, it was just a gust of wind. Impossible! How could we not kill him? Our godly strength has awakened many times, we can even kill a soul. Why can't we kill a gust of wind? Shouted someone furiously. Indeed, they were all godly emperors, and their godly strength had awakened many times. Even if it was a soul, wind, rain, thunder, lightning, they could destroy it. Even if that monster had been condensed from strong winds, they should have been able to destroy it, but why hadn't it worked? A strong gale swept across. While everyone was resisting the gale, they were on full alert. "Ah!" shouted another cultivator of the first godly emperor layer. He didn't know when that monster had appeared in front of him again. The wind was terrifying, and it surrounded that cultivator. That cultivator of the first godly emperor layer couldn't resist it. He was cut into pieces and turned into ashes. "Die! Die! Kill that monster!" shouted someone furiously, attacking the monster. But it was useless. The monster exploded and condensed not far away. It merged with the wind again and disappeared. They couldn't kill him. They really couldn't kill him. Furthermore, the world was filled with howling gales. This kind of monster blended into the gales and came and went without a trace. It was impossible to predict when it would attack. It was simply impossible to guard against it. "Let's leave! Let's leave! Indeed, let's leave! There are no treasures in this damned place. We've been looking everywhere and we haven't found anything. We'll die here. It's not worth it. Some people began to retreat, revealing a look of fear. They were all desperate people, and they were brave. However, they were terrified to fight against a monster that they couldn't kill. Chapter 3799. No, we can't separate. If we separate, the monster will kill us one by one and we'll die even faster, said the silver-haired old man. The reason why the previous group of people were defeated so quickly was because some people wanted to escape and retreat, so the group was scattered. This gave the monster an opportunity to take advantage of and kill everyone in just a few moves. Only the silver-haired old man was left. He had managed to escape thanks to his incredible cultivation level. What should we do then? Are we going to wait for death? If that's the case, I'd rather risk my life, shouted the scar-faced man furiously. The scars on his face were distorted. He looked hideous. He was terrified. That monster bullied the weak and feared the strong. It killed the weak first. 2 people had died before, and they were both cultivators of the first godly emperor layer. He was afraid that the next one would be him. That kind of waiting was torturous. There's only one way, we have to stay together and move towards the exit. That's the only way we'll have a chance to leave this place alive, said the silver-haired old man. All right, let's do that. I agree with Commander Een. Let's move out now. We'll move towards the exit together. Many people agreed to move together. Listen to me, get ready, attack, shouted the silver-haired elder. Everyone attacked at the same time. All sorts of attacks were sent towards the exit. That region's gale was instantly torn apart, and a huge gap appeared. Then, they moved together and rushed toward the gap. Unfortunately, the gale whistled and moved extremely fast. With a sweep, the gap was closed again. Attack together! Shouted the silver-haired old man. Everybody attacked again, and continued moving forwards. However, a moment later, a horrible shriek spread in the air. Everybody saw that the monster had appeared in front of a cultivator of the first godly emperor layer. That cultivator couldn't fight back at all and was killed instantly. The people next to him were astonished. They hastily attacked the monster, but just like before, after the monster's body broke apart, it condensed in the wind and disappeared. Hurry up, let's go! Shouted everybody furiously. They kept attacking the monster and sped up. However, they were still a distance away from the exit. It wasn't easy to cross that distance. After a short distance, the monster attacked again. Another cultivator of the first godly emperor layer was killed. Thus, everyone was in a state of panic. After a short time, another cultivator of the first godly emperor layer died. 5 cultivators of the first godly emperor layer had already been killed, but they couldn't do anything to the monsters. No, this is too slow. If this goes on, only death awaits. Let's rush out. With so many people rushing out, how many people can that monster kill? The chances of survival will be higher. It's better than waiting for death. Yes, let's split up and charge out, shouted some cultivators of the first godly emperor layer. Most of them were cultivators of the first godly emperor layer. That monster had been killing cultivators of the first godly emperor layer. How could those cultivators of the first godly emperor layer not panic? This won't do. Once we scatter, we'll all die. You won't be able to escape either, the silver-haired old man shouted. If we don't scatter, we'll die. That monster only kills cultivators of the first godly emperor layer. It won't kill you first, so you'll be fine. When we're all dead, you can escape to the exit, shouted a cultivator of the first godly emperor layer. The other cultivators of the first godly emperor layer, and even the second godly emperor layer, pulled long faces. Indeed, the monster was picking on the weak first. Strong cultivators like the silver-haired old man wouldn't die first. Maybe they could escape to the exit, but the cultivators of the first godly emperor layer would die. Even the cultivators of the second godly emperor layer would be in danger. They thought that the silver-haired old man and the others wanted to kill them so that they could escape. Let's go! Let's go! Instantly, all the cultivators of the first godly emperor layer and some of the cultivators of the second godly emperor layer ran in all directions. They were scattered. The Gale monster couldn't kill so many people at the same time. Now they had to see who was lucky. If they were lucky, they could escape. At the scene, only 8 people did not move, including Lu Ming. Those idiots! Shouted the silver-haired old man furiously. Before the silver-haired old man could finish speaking, a shrill scream was heard. A cultivator of the first godly emperor layer was blown away by a strong wind. His body broke like a piece of porcelain and turned into ashes in the scorching heat. Hoo! The fierce wind between heaven and earth suddenly became even more violent, as if countless giant beasts were roaring and rampaging within. Between heaven and earth, the fiery red gale actually formed tornadoes that swept in all directions. A series of miserable cries rang out. Those people who had rushed out were all swept up by the tornadoes. They let out miserable cries of despair before being turned to dust by the tornadoes. That included cultivators of the second godly emperor layer. Cultivators of the second godly emperor layer were much stronger than cultivators of the first godly emperor layer. They could easily kill cultivators of the first godly emperor layer, but in front of that tornado, they couldn't do anything. In the blink of an eye, those who had rushed out were all dead. The remaining people had pale faces. Lu Ming finally understood why only the silver-haired old man had managed to escape. Splitting up to escape was of no help at all. Let's continue moving forward using the same method as before, said the silver-haired old man. Then, they continued moving forwards, breaking through the strong wind. However, after a short time, they were attacked again. A cultivator of the second godly emperor layer was attacked by a monster. He couldn't fight back and was instantly killed. That was the last cultivator of the second godly emperor layer. The others were all cultivators of the third godly emperor layer and above. Of course, Lu Ming was an exception. Apart from Lu Ming, there were 6 people left, 2 cultivators of the fourth godly emperor layer and 4 cultivators of the third godly emperor layer. Attack! Shouted the silver-haired old man extremely loudly. They all attacked together, breaking through the strong wind and moving forwards. Whoosh! Suddenly, a strong wind flashed and an old woman of the third godly emperor layer appeared in front of her. The monster's body was condensed by the strong wind. That wind looked like countless sharp blades. It was scorching hot as it spun around and moved towards the old woman. Die! Shouted the old woman. She had the strength of the third godly emperor layer. She was much stronger than a cultivator of the second godly emperor layer. She shouted furiously, her body glowing with dazzling light. Her hands turned into 2 scimitars and she slashed out violently. Boom! The monster's body was cut into several pieces, but it wasn't injured at all. The pieces of the monster's body condensed back together and continued moving towards the old woman. The old woman's godly emperor layer broke like tofu. Chapter 3800. The old woman had the strength of the third godly emperor layer. Her protective godly aura was broken, and the wind crashed onto her body. She gave a horrible shriek. Attack! Shouted the old man with silver hair and the others. They used their full strength to attack the monster. Bam! The monster's body was scattered, turning into gusts of strong wind. It quickly retreated and merged into the surroundings, disappearing without a trace. However, nothing happened at all. The old woman looked miserable. She was covered in blood, and her body had almost been cut into pieces. Her chi was weak. Even though she wasn't dead, she was severely injured. If the others hadn't helped her, she would have died. Save me! You have to save me! Screamed the old woman. She was terrified. She was severely injured, and she was afraid the monster would attack her again. If that happened, she would die. Left! Shouted someone furiously at that moment. The monster appeared from the left. Everyone hurriedly attacked the left side, but his body flashed and disappeared. In the next moment, he reappeared in another direction. This direction was where the old woman was. Whoosh! Whoosh! A strong wind moved towards the old woman. No! Shouted the old woman. She was terrified, but then she stopped screaming. She was sucked into the wind and turned into ashes. Damn it, damn it! What is that monster? Why can't we kill it? Shouted the remaining cultivators of the third godly emperor layer furiously, as if they had gone insane. The old woman's cultivation level was similar to theirs. If the monster could kill the old woman, it could kill them too. How could they not go crazy? What do we do? What do we do? Asked a big man of the third godly emperor layer. He was terrified. Find that monster and use your full strength to attack it. I don't believe there's anything in the world that can't be killed. Maybe our method is wrong. Maybe we need to consume its energy, but we don't have enough. A clear and bright voice could be heard. It was Lu Ming. Lu Ming's words made the others' eyes twinkle. That's right. Maybe it's because our attacks aren't strong enough. Every time we attack, we're actually draining the monster's energy. Let's continue attacking. As long as we keep attacking, the monster's energy will be depleted, said the old man with silver hair. Even so, we can't find any traces of that monster. How are we going to attack it? Said another cultivator of the fourth godly emperor layer. He looked like a 30-year-old man with a square face. He was extremely strong. His name was Jaundice. That's right, I can't find any traces of him at all. Do we have to continue being bait? Then we'll all be killed by that monster before we can even defeat it. The others were all talking at once, their expressions ugly. Previously, when they attacked the monsters, it was the monsters that came out to kill. When they didn't come out to kill, the monsters would blend into the strong wind and couldn't be found. Leave this to me, I'll look for it, Lu Ming said. You came? Can you really find it? The rest of the people looked at Lu Ming with anticipation. Lu Ming was so young, yet his battle prowess was heaven-defying. He was definitely a monster from a large faction. Perhaps he really did have the means to find monsters. As long as they could find traces of the monster, they would not be so passive. Let me try! Lu Ming nodded. Of course, he wasn't relying on himself, he was relying on Gu Mo. Gu Mo had just told him that he might be able to find traces of the monster. After a period of research, Bone Devil already had a clue. Master Gu Mo, how is it? Lu Ming asked Gu Mo. Soon. Gu Mo was sitting cross-legged in Lu Ming's sea of consciousness. His pitch-black bones were shining. He looked holy and pure. He was doing his best to find the monster. I found it! Attack the right side! Said Gu Mo suddenly. Attack the right side! Shouted Lu Ming suddenly. He threw a punch towards the right side. The silver-haired old man and the others didn't hesitate, they followed Lu Ming's attack. 6 people, 6 attacks, blasted towards the right. The gale in that direction was constantly exploding. Then, they saw a blurry figure being destroyed by their attacks. It was really that monster. They really found it. The silver-haired old man, Jaundice, and the others were ecstatic. They looked at Lu Ming with anticipation. Let's move slowly. I'll find traces of the monster, said Lu Ming. All right, you can search in peace. I guarantee that the monster won't hurt you, said the silver-haired old man. That's right, Jaundice said. Now, Lu Ming was their only hope to escape. They would never let Lu Ming be attacked by the monster. They moved and protected Lu Ming in the middle. Huff, huff, huff. As they moved, strong winds blew around them, howling incessantly. Behind me! Suddenly, Lu Ming shouted again. Boom! Boom! The 6 of them attacked again. Their attacks were so fierce that the void kept exploding. They wanted to crush everything in that direction. In that direction, the monster's figure appeared. Under the 6 attacks, it dispersed and merged back into the strong wind. Great! Ha ha ha! Jaundice laughed excitedly. The others also had smiles on their faces. Once could be a coincidence, but twice in a row, Lu Ming found traces of the monster. That was no longer a coincidence. Lu Ming could really find traces of the monster. This way, they could hit the monster every time. Even if they couldn't kill the monster couldn't sneak up on them. They could leave this place alive. Next, they followed this method and headed toward the exit. Along the way, they hit the monster several times, preventing it from sneaking up on them. However, they found a problem. Could the monster really not be killed after hitting it so many times? Fortunately, they could now detect the monster's traces in advance. Otherwise, they would be in danger and would be left here. Seeing that they were not far from the exit, they slowly relaxed. Huff, huff, huff. At this moment, the strong wind around them roared crazily. It was even more violent than before. The endless strong wind spun rapidly around them like a tornado. They seemed to be shrouded in the center of the tornado. Then, in one direction, the monster's figure was faintly discernible in the strong wind. "Be careful, it seems that the monster is about to launch an all-out attack," reminded the silver-haired old man. Obviously, seeing that they were about to escape, "I'm going crazy. I want to attack them head-on and defeat them." "No, there's more than one monster. There are two, three." Suddenly, someone cried out in alarm. His voice was filled with terror. Chapter 38:01. Lu Ming, the silver-haired old man, Jaundice, and the others were also greatly alarmed. They swept their gazes around and discovered that one figure after another had appeared amidst the raging winds. All of them were figures of monsters that looked exactly the same. 1, 2, 3. A total of 9. 9 monsters appeared and surrounded them. The faces of the silver-haired old man, Jaundice, and the others turned ashen. The reason for that was because those were definitely not illusions. Instead, they truly existed. Those 9 monsters were all real. There were actually a total of 9 such monsters. One of them was already difficult enough to deal with, but now, there were actually 9 of them. We're finished," shouted a strong cultivator of the third godly emperor layer. He looked desperate. Although the others didn't shout, their eyes were also filled with despair. Only Lu Ming was better off. Along the way, Lu Ming had experienced too many dangerous situations and faced too many crises. He was very clear in his heart that the more dangerous the situation, the calmer he had to be. Moreover, he still had a trump card. He would carry the purple copper coffin with him. If it did not work, he could just open the purple copper coffin and risk his life. Hoo-hoo, the gale whistled and became even more violent. Then, the 9 monsters moved at the same time, bringing with them a terrifying gale as they charged towards Lu Ming's group. The scorching heat even burned through space. A strong wind that was countless times sharper than a blade swept towards Lu Ming's group of 6. 2 attacked the silver-haired old man, 2 attacked Jaundice, and the remaining 5 attacked Lu Ming and the 3 cultivators of the third godly emperor layer. Even through Qiuqiu's armor, he could still feel the terrifying heat. "Break!" Lu Ming brandished the silver spear that Qiuqiu had transformed into. The silver spear was suffused with the radiance of moonlight, breaking apart the terrifying gale. But Lu Ming could break the gale, and the other 3 cultivators of the third godly emperor layer weren't as strong. I can't accept this," shouted someone furiously. One of the cultivators of the third godly emperor layer was attacked by 2 monsters at the same time. He couldn't compete with them and was killed instantly. "No, I don't want to die here. I want to charge out," shouted the remaining 2 cultivators of the third godly emperor layer furiously. They wanted to run away. However, their fate was already sealed. When they rushed into the gale, they were immediately attacked by several monsters. After 2 screams, they stopped breathing. Thus, only the silver-haired old man, Jaundice, and Lu Ming were left. The silver-haired old man and Jaundice had the strength of the 4th godly emperor layer, medium-level godly emperors. They were much stronger than cultivators of the 3rd godly emperor layer. The 2 of them used their full strength to block the 2 monsters' attacks. They even had the upper hand. However, the monsters were immortal. Once they were defeated, they would quickly reform. Lu Ming wasn't that strong himself, but with Qiuqiu's help, he had the strength of the fourth godly emperor layer, or even higher. Chiu had already broken through to the second godly emperor layer. After turning into a silver spear, he was terrifyingly strong. He could definitely compete with cultivators of the fourth godly emperor layer. He could even kill them. Lu Ming relied on Chiu to block the monster's attacks. However, after the monsters killed the 3 cultivators of the third godly emperor layer, they started to gather and surround Lu Ming and the others. Lu Ming, the silver-haired old man, and Jaundice also gathered together and joined hands to fight against the monsters. The 9 monsters stirred up a strong gale and launched a fierce attack at them. The 3 of them could only defend themselves. They couldn't break out. The silver-haired old man and Jaundice pulled long faces. The situation wasn't good. If it continued, they might not be able to break out. I understand now. I finally understand. It's not that these so-called monsters can't die, but that they aren't his true body. At this moment, Bone Demon shouted in Lu Ming's sea of consciousness. Not his real body? Master Gumo, what do you mean? Asked Lu Ming hastily. It's very simple. The real monster hasn't shown up yet. The ones attacking you are his energy clones. Therefore, when you defeat him and consume his energy, his real body will replenish his energy and create an illusion that he's immortal. As long as you can find his real body and attack it, you'll be able to destroy the monster, explained Gumo. I see. Master Gumo, can you find the real body of the monster? Asked Lu Ming. No problem. I've already found some clues. I'll be able to find it soon, said Gumo. His head was shining. He was looking for the monster's real body. I know how to get rid of those monsters, said Lu Ming to the silver-haired old man and Jaundice at that moment. You have a solution? What is it? When the silver-haired old man and Jaundice heard Lu Ming, they were suddenly excited. They looked desperate before, but now they had hope again. Do you know why those monsters can't be killed? It's because they aren't his real body. His real body hasn't shown up. Those are his clones. Lu Ming repeated Gumo's explanation. I see. No wonder it's so hard to kill them. Little brother, do you have a way to find the monster's real body? Asked the silver-haired old man. Yes, I found it. It's in that direction. At that moment, Gumo found the direction of the monster's real body and pointed it out to Lu Ming. Lu Ming took the opportunity to point it out. All right, let's kill our way over. Kill that monster! The silver-haired old man and Jaundice revealed a ferocious glint. Together with Lu Ming, they charged in that direction. Whoosh whoosh whoosh, the 9 monsters seemed to be anxious. They gathered together and stirred up an endless gale. They attacked Lu Ming's group crazily, trying to block Lu Ming's group. However, this further confirmed that Lu Ming was right. Jaundice and the silver-haired old man suppressed themselves to the extreme. They used every bit of their strength to attack crazily. Lu Ming waved his silver spear. The dazzling spear light swept across the sky, shattering the 2 monsters. They rushed through and rushed into the strong wind, continuing to move forward. Sure enough, after rushing for a while, they found a figure. This figure looked very similar to the monster, but its body was taller and more solid. In the middle of its head, there was a round bead that was shining. This was definitely the monster's real body. There was no mistake. Kill! The silver-haired old man and Jaundice became excited and rushed toward the monster's real body. However, in front of the monster's real body, 9 figures condensed. They were the 9 clones. The 9 clones blocked in front of them. However, at this point, Lu Ming's group had no way out. They could only kill the monsters to survive. The 3 of them joined forces and turned into 3 terrifying attacks, attacking the 9 monsters. Boom, boom, boom! The collision of the gale and the divine light triggered a terrifying wave of energy that swept in all directions. Myriad Dao Dragon Emperor, Myriad Dao Dragon Emperor. Chapter 3802. Lu Ming and the other 2 joined forces and fought the 9 clones with all their might. Obviously, the 9 monsters were also going all out and attacking crazily. In the end, Lu Ming and the rest broke through the encirclement of the 9 monsters, but they also paid a price. Lu Ming was still fine. He had Qiu Qiu's armor, which offset most of the attack power. Although some of the gale cut through Qiu Qiu's armor, when it landed on Lu Ming's body, it did not cause much damage to Lu Ming. With Lu Ming's heaven-defying recovery ability, he was basically fine. However, the silver-haired old man and jaundice were not so lucky. Dense wounds appeared on their bodies, all of which were cut by the gale. Moreover, these wounds healed very slowly because the gale contained a terrifying high temperature, which was constantly burning their wounds. The 2 of them suffered serious injuries, but fortunately, they were already close to the monster's body. Kill! 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 The 3 of them shouted and attacked the monster's body. Roar! The monster's body actually let out a beast-like roar, and a gale erupted from its body. Its arms turned into 2 large blades formed by the gale and slashed at Lu Ming and the rest. Boom! 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 After a few consecutive booms, the 3 of them trembled and could not help but retreat. The strength of the monster's body was very shocking, far above the clones. However, it was not so strong that they could still deal with it. The 3 of them retreated and charged at the monster's body again. Both sides fought fiercely, and after dozens of moves, there was no clear victor. This was because the monster's body was the same as the clones. After being destroyed, it would condense again. Hit the bead on the monster's head! Gu Mo transmitted his voice to Lu Ming. Attack the bead on its head! Lu Ming said to Jaundice and the silver-haired old man. The moonlight spear was like lightning, breaking through the void and piercing the bead on the monster's head. After receiving Lu Ming's reminder, the silver-haired old man and Jaundice also began to attack the bead on the monster's head. Sure enough, this made the monster nervous. It did not dare to attack freely and began to defend the bead on its head. It was absolutely effective. The 3 of them did not stop attacking the bead. Finally, Lu Ming seized the opportunity and stabbed the bead with his spear. Clang! The sound of metal clashing rang out. This spear did not shatter the bead, but the monster's body was sent flying by the powerful force. Jaundice and the silver-haired old man took the opportunity to attack out. Roar! The monster's body seemed to have been completely infuriated by Lu Ming's move. It let out a terrifying roar and the bead on its head emitted a dazzling glow. Then, a powerful force emerged. As soon as the energy from the bead surged out, it turned into a violent gust of wind. This gust of wind then condensed into figures. They were all monster avatars. The aura was the monster's outs. The 9 monster clones roared and pounced on Lu Ming, the silver-haired elder, and Jaundice. As soon as they reached the 3 of them, the 9 monster clones self-destructed. The 9 monster clones self-destructed, creating a destructive force that charged toward Lu Ming and the other 2. Not good! The expressions of the silver-haired old man, Jaundice, and Lu Ming changed drastically. The 3 of them retreated rapidly. In the process of retreating, they performed their strongest defensive techniques. 2 silver shields appeared in front of the silver-haired old man. A yellow mountain appeared in front of Jaundice. As for Lu Ming, he waved his left palm. All kinds of defensive secret skills in the cells in his body erupted, forming multiple layers of defense. The moment the 3 of them set up their defenses, the destructive force surged toward them. Rumble! Their defenses began to tremble violently. A few cracks instantly appeared on the silver-haired old man's silver shield. As for Jaundice's mountain-shaped treasure, it also shook violently and cracks appeared on its surface. Pung! Pung! In the next moment, the silver-haired old man's shield and Jaundice's mountain-shaped treasure shattered at the same time. The terrifying destructive force rushed toward them. The 2 of them screamed as their bodies were blasted thousands of miles away. They coughed up large mouthfuls of blood. Their bodies were tattered and severely injured. The 2 of them looked extremely terrified. They did not dare to stay any longer. They turned into 2 streaks of light and disappeared into the distance. They were so scared that they fled. While the silver-haired old man and Jaundice were blasted away, Lu Ming was also hit by the destructive force. His various secret techniques only lasted for a breath's time before they were destroyed. The terrifying destructive force bombarded Lu Ming's body. Clang! Clang! In the end, even Qiuqiu's armor was cut open. However, Qiuqiu's armor had already blocked a large portion of the attack. The force that landed on Lu Ming's body was very limited. Lu Ming was blasted away and coughed up large mouthfuls of blood. His injuries were quite serious, but he still managed to withstand it. What a terrifying force! Lu Ming was secretly alarmed. He wanted to copy the silver-haired old man in jaundice and escape. At this moment, Bone Demon's voice sounded. Now is a good opportunity. That monster has stimulated the power in the bead and unleashed a big move. It is now in a weakened state. Take the opportunity to take away that bead and destroy the will on it. Lu Ming immediately stopped in his tracks. Without any hesitation, he rushed towards the monster. The monster revealed a look of fear. It roared and actually turned to leave. However, how could Lu Ming let it leave? He raised his speed to the limit and caught up to the monster in a few flashes. He grabbed at the bead with his big hand. Bone Demon was right. The monster was now in a weakened state. Although it tried its best to resist, it did not have much power. Lu Ming's claw pierced through it, and he successfully grabbed the bead. The bead vibrated non-stop. There was a wisp of spiritual will attached to it. This was the origin of the monster. A wisp of spiritual will attached to the bead and borrowed the power of the bead to condense Liefeng's body. Squeak! 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 It sounded like a mouse in panic. Die for me! Lu Ming's eyes turned cold. The taboo force rushed towards the bead and began to erase this wisp of spiritual will. The taboo force was the most terrifying force in the world. This wisp of spiritual will could not stop it at all. It screamed a few times with unwillingness before it was completely obliterated by the taboo force. When this wisp of spiritual will was obliterated, the surrounding life-forms suddenly became much smaller and calmer. It was not as violent as before. The bead also fell into Lu Ming's hand. What is this bead? It can actually erupt with such powerful energy? Lu Ming stared at the bead and pondered. Then, his spiritual will approached the bead, wanting to investigate it. Just as Lu Ming's spiritual will entered the bead, a shocking scene appeared. Lu Ming seemed to hear a rumble, and then the environment suddenly changed. Myriad Dao Dragon Emperor, Myriad Dao Dragon Emperor. Chapter 3803. With a bang, Lu Ming felt like he had arrived in an unfamiliar starry sky. I can't accept this. I can't accept this. In front of him, a man was standing in the starry sky, roaring. Every single strand of his hair stood on end. Terrifying energy surged out of his body unceasingly. A gale. The energy rushing out of the man's body was a gale. This gale was countless times more terrifying than the one Lu Ming and the others had encountered before. It swept through the starry sky, attacking Lu Ming. Not good, it's over! Lu Ming turned pale with fright. This gale was too strong. Compared to it, Lu Ming felt like an ant. He couldn't resist at all. In an instant, the gale dashed in front of Lu Ming. Just as Lu Ming thought that he was going to be killed by the gale, he realized that the gale did not hurt him at all. It dashed past him and went far away in an instant. It was as if his body was illusory, not real. What's going on? Could it be that everything I saw was fake? Was it all an illusion? Or was this just a projection from a certain time period? Various thoughts flashed through Lu Ming's mind. Whoosh! Gale was constantly rushing out of that man's body. This gale was too strong, so strong that it could destroy heaven and earth. The raging winds swept through the starry skies. Wherever they passed, all the planets were turned into ashes. Some of the planets had living beings living on them, and there were also powerful beings with high cultivation. However, none of these powerful beings could escape. They were all turned into ashes under the raging winds. Only a few resource planets collapsed. But the core metal remained, condensing into small pieces that floated in the starry sky. The boundless starry sky was engulfed by the raging winds, and everything was shrouded by them. Could this be the origin of the Gale Star River? Lu Ming's eyes widened. He was shocked by his own guess. However, this might be the truth. The Gale Star River might have been formed like this. The energy that emerged from a person's body could actually destroy an entire star river, turning it into a place where the gale would wreak havoc for billions of years. It was unknown what level his cultivation had reached. It was too terrifying. Lu Ming had once heard from the Measure Character Manual that someone had used the Ice Character Manual to freeze a galaxy. Lu Ming had thought that the Measure Character Manual was just bragging. How vast was a galaxy? It was almost boundless, containing countless planets and small worlds. How could such a vast territory be frozen by human strength? That wasn't like blowing up a planet. That was countless times harder than blowing up a planet. But now, Lu Ming believed it because the truth was right in front of his eyes. I'm unwilling! The man roared again. His hair and beard fluttered, and with a final boom, his entire body exploded. An even more terrifying energy swept through the starry sky. When the energy dissipated, a bead appeared in the starry sky. This bead was exactly the same as the one Lu Ming had grabbed before. So that was how the bead was formed. One of the 3,000 ancient secret techniques, Great Divine Wind Technique. Suddenly, a piece of information was transmitted to Lu Ming's mind. This piece of information was a secret skill. The 3,000 ancient secret techniques. Lu Ming was dumbfounded. The secret techniques in this world were roughly divided into 3 types. The first type was the secret techniques of the origin, which were comprehended from divine power. As long as one had enough talent, they could comprehend them from divine power. Furthermore, they had great potential and were powerful enough to comprehend them for a lifetime. The other type was the physique secret technique. The requirements to cultivate a physique secret technique were harsh. Not many people could successfully cultivate it. Those who could were practically all heavenly geniuses. The third type was the ordinary secret techniques. There were tens of thousands of ordinary secret techniques. There were all kinds of them. There were offensive, defensive, speed, support, and even alchemy, tool forging, and so on. This was also the type that most people cultivated. However, ordinary secret techniques were mostly used as support. They weren't very powerful. Even if they were cultivated to a high realm, it would be difficult for them to contend with the source secret techniques. However, there was a small portion of ordinary secret techniques that were special. That was the 3,000 ancient secret techniques. As the name suggested, there were 3,000 types of the 3,000 ancient secret techniques. These 3,000 ancient secret techniques were the strongest ordinary secret techniques in the world. They were extremely powerful and had amazing potential. It was said that cultivating the 3,000 ancient secret techniques to the peak was no worse than cultivating the source secret techniques to the peak. Moreover, the cultivation of the 3,000 ancient secret techniques mainly relied on one's comprehension. Those with high comprehension could continue to comprehend and improve their realm. There was no need to sever the shackles like the source secret techniques. However, the 3,000 ancient secret techniques were extremely difficult to cultivate and were too rare. As time passed, many of them were lost. They were extremely rare now. Lu Ming didn't expect to encounter one of the 3,000 ancient secret techniques here. Lu Ming was overjoyed. Lu Ming's current body was cultivating the taboo power. He needed to continuously integrate ordinary secret techniques. However, he had integrated more than 500 ordinary secret techniques, but none of them could take on great responsibilities alone. None of them were powerful. When Lu Ming fought now, he relied more on the taboo power and brute force. If there was one of the 3,000 ancient secret techniques, it would be different. Moreover, when the taboo body reached the end, he needed to create his own technique according to the thousands of secret techniques he cultivated and walk his own path. In that case, the stronger the secret technique integrated at the beginning, the better. The arrival of the Great God Wind technique was like adding wings to a tiger. At this moment, the surrounding scene changed again and disappeared. Lu Ming returned to the original world. Lu Ming, be careful, someone is attacking you. At this moment, Gu Mo reminded him. Boom! Swoosh! At the same time, Lu Ming sensed that there were terrifying attacks coming at him from behind and on his right. The power was shocking and the speed was very fast. It was so fast that it was difficult for Lu Ming to dodge. The person who attacked had grasped the timing very well. Fortunately, Chiu had turned into armor and was wearing Lu Ming's body. At the critical moment, Lu Ming's figure rushed forward and narrowly avoided the attack from the right. However, he couldn't avoid the attack from behind. Boom! A palm print from behind landed heavily on Lu Ming's back. Lu Ming's body was blasted forward. His blood was in turmoil and he spat out a mouthful of blood. However, as Lu Ming rushed forward, he more or less dissipated a part of the force. Moreover, Chiu's armor also blocked a part of the force. Therefore, Lu Ming's injury wasn't very serious. However, a few bones on his back were broken and were recovering quickly. Lu Ming quickly turned around and glanced around. His eyes were filled with cold light. As expected, the ones who attacked him were Jaundice and the silver-haired old man who had escaped previously. Previously, the two of them retreated with injuries. At this moment, their injuries were much better, although they hadn't fully recovered. Gu Mo, how long has it been since I got that bead? Lu Ming secretly communicated with Gu Mo. 1 day, Gu Mo replied. Myriad Dao Dragon Emperor, Myriad Dao Dragon Emperor. Chapter 3804. 1 day! Gu Mo informed him that a day had passed since Lu Ming grabbed the bead and entered that magical world. It was no wonder that the silver-haired elder and Jaundice had recovered from their injuries. Why did the two of you sneak attack me? Lu Ming asked coldly. The silver-haired elder and Jaundice stared at the bead in Lu Ming's hand, emitting a scorching radiance. A divine king's lifespan was 5 stellar years, a divine lord's lifespan was 10 stellar years, and a divine emperor's lifespan was even 100 stellar years. The silver-haired elder and Jaundice were old monsters who had lived for dozens of stellar years. Their minds were extremely sharp. They had been severely injured by the monster and had fled in a panic. However, they quickly reacted and realized the key point. After the monster unleashed its energy, its aura weakened. It was clearly in a weakened state. Of course, they were cautious by nature and did not dare to return rashly. Instead, they waited for their injuries to recover before sneaking back. When they returned, they did not see the monster at all. They only saw Lu Ming holding the bead in a daze. Needless to say, that bead was definitely a precious treasure. The two of them attacked without hesitation. They wanted to kill Lu Ming first, and then snatch the bead. As for the friendship they had with Lu Ming when they fought the enemy together, what was that? Could it be eaten? Fortunately, Lu Ming woke up at the critical moment and blocked the attack. Hee hee! The silver-haired elder sneered. He stared at the bead in Lu Ming's hand and said, Little brother, we obtained this bead when we fought the monster together. Now hand it over. That's right. This treasure should be divided equally between us. Jaundice added. If you want to divide the treasure equally, you should have just told me. Why did you sneak attack me? Since you've ambushed me, don't even think about getting this treasure. Lu Ming said coldly. With a thought, the bead was kept in his storage ring. The silver-haired elder and Jaundice's faces darkened. Kid, you have to think carefully about whether you have the ability to take it all for yourself. The silver-haired elder said coldly. You can try. Lu Ming said indifferently. The silver spear that Chiu had transformed into pointed at the silver-haired old man. Brother Huang, it seems that this brat is stubborn. Let's join forces and kill this brat first, then we can discuss the distribution of the treasures. What do you think? The silver-haired old man looked at Jaundice. Okay. Jaundice's reply was very simple. As the sound of his voice faded, he stepped out, and a powerful aura gushed towards Lu Ming. The silver-haired old man's long hair fluttered as he charged towards Lu Ming. Kill! Lu Ming shouted and took the initiative to attack. His silver spear light was like a rainbow, piercing through the void and shooting towards the silver-haired old man in jaundice. At the same time, the silver-haired old man in jaundice also made their moves. Two terrifying attacks attacked Lu Ming, fiercely colliding with the moonlight spear light. 1. At the moment of collision, the moonlight spear light shook violently. The moonlight shone brightly, illuminating the starry sky. The moonlight spear light pierced through the silver-haired old man in jaundice's attacks, and then flashed past, leaving 2 bloody holes in their bodies. The 2 of them retreated at full speed, looking at Lu Ming in astonishment. "Your attack power, how is that possible?" The silver-haired old man in jaundice shouted at the same time. They were astonished. How could Lu Ming's attack power be so strong? 1 against 2, and he had managed to injure them in 1 move. They didn't know that this was actually Qiuqiu's real attack power. Previously, when they had faced that monster, Qiuqiu hadn't been able to use its full power. That monster had been completely condensed by the strong wind, so it had been easy to destroy it. However, it was useless to destroy it, because it would condense again. It was as if Qiuqiu's attack had hit nothing but air. At that time, Qiuqiu hadn't been able to use its full power. Qiuqiu had the strength of the second godly emperor layer, and after turning into a silver spear, it could defeat, or even kill cultivators of the 4th godly emperor layer. As for Jaundice and the silver-haired old man, they had been injured and hadn't recovered yet, so their fighting strength wasn't at its peak. Naturally, they had been injured by Lu Ming and Qiuqiu's joint attack. "Die!" shouted Lu Ming. He attacked the 2 of them again, not giving them a chance to catch their breath. The silver spear light fell like a meteor, piercing towards the silver-haired old man in jaundice. At the same time, 3 gravity pearls flew out, and a powerful gravitational force enveloped the 2 of them. Even though the 3 gravity pearls couldn't have a decisive effect on cultivators of the 4th godly emperor layer, they could still interfere with them more or less. The 2 of them were startled, and hastily tried to defend themselves. However, they were already injured, and their fighting strength wasn't at its peak. They were also suppressed by the gravity pearls, so their fighting strength was even weaker. They were no match for Lu Ming and Qiuqiu. // The 2 of them were pierced by the spear light. Jaundice's heart was pierced by the spear light, and he was nailed to the ground. He coughed up blood, and his face was deathly pale. The silver-haired old man's stomach was pierced by the spear light, and he was sent flying a few hundred li away. Lu Ming wouldn't miss such an opportunity. He didn't waste any time. He fused with his spear, and turned into a dazzling spear light which shot towards Jaundice. "No!" Jaundice let out a roar of despair. In the next instant, the silver spear had already pierced through his forehead. His soul naturally couldn't escape and was crushed by the destructive power of the spear light. Jaundice had died. A few hundred li away, the silver-haired old man was scared out of his wits. He didn't care about his injuries and started running away. "Humph!" Lu Ming groaned coldly. He turned into a spear light and chased after the silver-haired old man. The silver-haired old man had been severely injured, and his speed had decreased greatly. Lu Ming chased after him with all his strength, and the distance between them was getting shorter and shorter. "Little brother, it's a misunderstanding. It's all a misunderstanding. I don't want your treasure anymore. It's yours!" shouted the silver-haired old man in fear. "It's too late to say that. When you attacked me by surprise, you didn't show any mercy," Lu Ming said coldly. "Little brother, I was wrong. I was blinded by lard just now. I won't do it again. As long as you let me go, I'll be your slave," the silver-haired old man shouted. Seeing that the distance between him and Lu Ming was getting closer, he was so scared that he couldn't stop trembling. Lu Ming couldn't be bothered with him. He controlled the gravity orb, and the strong gravity pressed down on the silver-haired old man. The silver-haired old man's speed was slowed down by the gravity, and Lu Ming caught up with him in an instant. "Little bastard, I'll fight it out with you." Seeing that Lu Ming didn't intend to let him go, the silver-haired old man became ruthless. His face was distorted, and he turned around to attack Lu Ming. However, it was useless against Lu Ming. The silver spear light flashed. The silver-haired old man, who was already injured, couldn't withstand a single blow. He barely blocked 2 moves before being swept by the spear. His body exploded, leaving only his head behind as he fled frantically. Lu Ming raised his hand and thrust out his spear. The silver-haired old man's head exploded, and his body and soul were destroyed. Chapter 3805. After killing the silver-haired old man, Lu Ming kept the storage rings of the silver-haired old man and jaundice. Then, he took out the bead again and started to think. Lu Ming actually obtained the 3,000 ancient secret techniques from this bead. Moreover, he felt that the bead contained a terrifying flame storm. Previously, that monster had activated a wisp of energy from the bead and formed 9 clones to self-destruct. Lu Ming was considering whether he should cultivate the Great Divine Wind technique. Senior Bone Demon, do you think I should cultivate the Great Divine Wind technique? Lu Ming asked Bone Demon. Cultivate, this is the 3,000 ancient secret techniques, why not? Bone Demon said. But I saw a powerful existence self-destruct in the end. Lu Ming hesitated and told Bone Demon about the scene he saw before. So it's because of this, then there's no need to worry. Cultivating the Great Divine Wind technique will definitely not cause self-destruction. The reason why the man you mentioned self-destructed, I reckon that his cultivation had reached a certain level and he wanted to break through to the next realm. In the end, he failed and self-destructed. The further one cultivates, the harder it is to improve. Breaking through is also dangerous. This is very normal, Bone Demon explained. Lu Ming suddenly understood and finally felt relieved. He was worried that the powerful existence he saw had self-destructed because he was cultivating the Great Divine Wind technique. Now that it turned out not to be the case, he could cultivate in peace. Lu Ming planned to cultivate the Great Divine Wind technique here. There was still more than a year before the 3 years he set. Moreover, this place was filled with strong winds. It was the best place to cultivate the Great Divine Wind technique. It was simply blessed by the heavens and had a great effect on the cultivation of the Great Divine Wind technique. Lu Ming kept the bead and silently went through the cultivation method of the Great Divine Wind technique in his mind. Then, he began to cultivate. The 3,000 ancient secret techniques were very difficult to cultivate. Even the entry level was astonishingly difficult. Ordinary people might cultivate for a lifetime and still not be able to touch the threshold. Even a genius would need to spend a lot of time to cultivate before they could succeed. However, for Lu Ming, it was not that difficult. Firstly, Lu Ming's comprehension was at an abnormal level. Secondly, Lu Ming had already cultivated more than 500 kinds of secret skills. He could comprehend them by analogy. He had experience in cultivating secret skills that others could not. Thirdly, this place was filled with strong winds that had not dissipated for hundreds of millions of years. This was left behind by the terrifying expert who cultivated the Great Divine Wind technique. Lu Ming could use it as a reference. It was equivalent to half an expert guiding him. With these 3 conditions, it was not difficult for Lu Ming to cultivate the entry level. Time passed day by day. In the blink of an eye, 1 month, 2 months, 3 months, 1 year, soon, more than a year's time. Whoosh! Between heaven and earth, a figure flashed rapidly. Every time, a figure flashed brought up. Lu Ming seemed to be wrapped in a layer of strong wind. Wherever he passed by, the strong wind would automatically disperse. It did not affect Lu Ming at all. Boom! In the end, Lu Ming condensed a hurricane. With a palm strike, the hurricane formed a terrifying force that cut the void into pieces. Huff! Lu Ming let out a long breath and stopped. The wind around his body also dissipated. As expected of the Great Divine Wind technique. It's so powerful. It's far from being comparable to ordinary secret techniques. Lu Ming praised with a smile on his face. After more than a year of cultivation, Lu Ming finally succeeded in cultivating the Great Divine Wind technique. It turned into a secret technique rune and integrated into a cell. Lu Ming had just succeeded in cultivating the Great God Wind technique, but he discovered that the power of the Great God Wind technique was far above that of ordinary secret skills. Under the activation of his taboo power, the power was even stronger than that of the secret skill of the origin that had severed 3 shackles. It seems that I still need to spend more time on the Great Divine Wind technique in the future, Lu Ming thought. The Great Divine Wind technique was different from other secret techniques. For other secret techniques, it was integrated into the cells and let the scattered soul in the cells slowly comprehend it. After a long time, it would naturally increase in maturity. However, the Great Divine Wind technique was too slow to be comprehended. It needed Lu Ming to personally comprehend it and increase its power. It would become one of Lu Ming's killer moves. And this round bead. With a thought, the round bead appeared in Lu Ming's hand. Lu Ming named it the Gale bead. In the past year, Lu Ming had also taken the time to study the Gale bead. The Gale bead contained a terrifying flaming storm. It gave Lu Ming a feeling that if it was released, it could destroy the world. Unfortunately, the Gale bead contained layers of seals. It was difficult to release the flaming storm in one go. If he wanted to release the storm in the bead, he needed to use the Great Divine Wind technique to guide it. The stronger the Great Divine Wind technique was, the more seals it could break and the bigger the flaming storm it could release. With Lu Ming's current mastery of the Great Divine Wind technique, he could release a terrifying force. This force was far beyond his own strength. This could be Lu Ming's killer move. Lu Ming kept it carefully. 3 years are almost up. I wonder how the sky prides of the various clans are doing now. Let's go out and meet them. Lu Ming smiled. Now that his combat strength had increased greatly, he was looking forward to the clash with the sky prides of the various clans. Lu Ming walked towards the exit. Now that he had mastered the Great Divine Wind technique, the gale was ineffective against him. His speed was much faster. Soon, he left the Gale Galaxy. After a while, he returned to the Fengdu Sword Sect. As soon as Lu Ming returned to the Fengdu Sword Sect, Sect Leader Wang knew about it and immediately came to see Lu Ming. Sect Leader Wang, you finally dared to come to see me, Lu Ming said indifferently. Sect Leader Wang smiled bitterly and said, Little brother Mu Yun, please forgive me. My Fengdu Sword Sect is just an ordinary force, and those sky prides are all from powerful races on the list of 10,000 races. If I were to go against them, the Fengdu Sword Sect would soon disappear from the desolate universe. Lu Ming could understand Sect Leader Wang. Those powerful races were indeed not something the Fengdu Sword Sect could afford to offend. Just now, he was just complaining. Sect Leader Wang, how have the sky prides of the various clans been in the past few years? Have they come to the Iron Sea Star region? Lu Ming asked. They're here, of course they're here, and there's a lot of them. Sect Leader Wang said, Ever since you left, sky prides have been gathering from all over the desolate universe. Some want to challenge you, and some are just here to watch the show. However, since you're not here, these sky prides will stay in the Iron Sea Star region. They thought that the elf princess Ling Yue was in the Iron Sea Star region and searched everywhere. Unfortunately, they couldn't find her. However, in the past few years, the Iron Sea Star region has been very lively. It's rare for these sky prides to gather, so they often hold various gatherings to spar with each other, waiting for the 3-year agreement with you. After Sect Leader Wang's explanation, Lu Ming had a rough understanding of the situation in the past few years. Myriad Dao Dragon Emperor, Myriad Dao Dragon Emperor. Chapter 3806. After Sect Leader Wang's explanation, Lu Ming had a rough idea of what was going on. Are there any gatherings of geniuses? Lu Ming asked. Are you going to look for them? Sect Leader Wang said. Since they're already here, it's not a good idea for me to not show up. The 3 years are almost up, it's time for me to meet them, Lu Ming said with a smile. Little brother Mu Yun, let me warn you. Don't be careless. Even though there are no monstrous geniuses above the godly emperor realm, there are still some terrifying geniuses who are extremely powerful. It's easy for a quasi-emperor to kill a godly emperor, sect leader Wang reminded with a solemn expression. Although Lu Ming was extremely talented, his cultivation was still a little weak. Sect leader Wang was afraid that Lu Ming wouldn't be a match for those geniuses. Thank you for your concern, sect leader Wang. I know what I'm doing, Lu Ming said. Seeing Lu Ming so confident, sect leader Wang didn't try to persuade him anymore. There's a gathering of geniuses on planet Kun soon. You can make it if you go there now. All right. Lu Ming nodded and went straight to planet Kun without stopping. Planet Kunming Lake was vast and the lake water was as clear as a mirror. One could see many divine fish swimming around in the lake. There was a small island in the center of the lake. At this moment, many geniuses were gathered on the island. These geniuses were from various races and they were all there for Lu Ming. In the past few years, they couldn't find the elven princess, so they often held gatherings to spar with each other while waiting for Lu Ming's arrival. Of course, in addition to the geniuses of various races, there were also geniuses from the 18 forces in the Iron Sea Star Zone. These people were not there to challenge Lu Ming, but to make friends with the geniuses of various races. There was a battle platform in the center of the island. At this moment, 2 young men were sparring on the battle platform. Both of them were 9th level divine lords and their combat strength was similar. They fought back and forth and it was very lively. Around them, many young men were drinking and watching the battle while chatting. Do you think Mu Yun will show up? It's been almost 3 years. Do you think he will appear again? The reason he said he would fight again in 3 years was just to find an excuse to delay the time. Now that the geniuses of various clans have gathered, how could he have the guts to come out? I think so too. It's best if that guy doesn't come out. His reputation will be ruined from then on. The elven princess will naturally not marry such a person. Even if he appears, there are many people who can suppress him and make him lose face. What is he? He even dared to reject the elven princess? Who does he think he is? Everyone was discussing. When it came to Lu Ming, some sneered and ridiculed him, while others had cold gazes. These people's hearts were filled with complicated emotions. If Lu Ming agreed to marry the elf princess, they would be unhappy. They would think that Lu Ming was not qualified and would want to kill Lu Ming. However, they were even more displeased that Lu Ming had rejected the elf princess. They had tried so hard to woo her, but Lu Ming had rejected them. Didn't that mean that they were even more trashy and were pursuing something that others did not want? In short, they wanted to suppress Lu Ming and make Lu Ming lose face. In this way, not only would they gain face, but Lu Ming and the elf princess's marriage would also be ruined. It was killing 2 birds with 1 stone. Look, who's that? Suddenly, someone pointed at the lake in the east and shouted. Everyone couldn't help but look in that direction. On the lake in the east, a young man was walking on the waves, looking very suave. This young man was naturally Lu Ming. It's Mu Yun! He finally showed up. I didn't expect him to really show up. Very good! Many people stood up and revealed cold gazes. The 2 young men who were sparring on the battle platform also stopped and looked at Lu Ming. Whoosh! Lu Ming's speed was very fast. In a few steps, he arrived at the small island. He flew in the air and landed on the battle platform in the middle of the island. The 2 young men in the battle platform quickly retreated, not daring to face Lu Ming. In fact, although there were many geniuses present, not many of them dared to fight with Lu Ming. After all, back then, Lu Ming had defeated Xiao Dao, who was a famous genius among the quasi-emperors. He was indeed powerful. Everyone's eyes fell on Lu Ming. Mu Yun, you're finally here. Fight with me again! A voice was heard. A purple light flashed and a young man appeared on the battle platform. Xiang Prefecture. This young man was actually from Xiang Prefecture. Xiang Prefecture is going to fight. I heard that his Eastern Purple Chi technique has made a breakthrough again. He wants to defeat Mu Yun and reclaim his honor. In the Purple Sun Prefecture, he can be considered a top figure. Not many people can break through immediately after being defeated after being humiliated. Many people were discussing. Lu Ming glanced at Xiang Prefecture and shook his head. You're not my match. There's no need to fight anymore. How would you know that I'm not your match if we haven't fought? Lu Ming, aren't you overconfident? Xiang Prefecture said. His body was shrouded in purple light, and his battle intent was strong. After being defeated by Lu Ming, he didn't feel disheartened. Instead, he felt humiliated and made a breakthrough in his Eastern Purple Chi technique, allowing his battle strength to reach a higher level. Back then, it wasn't easy for Lu Ming to defeat him. There was a limit to how much stronger he was. Now that his battle strength had increased, he was confident that he could compete with Lu Ming. Is this enough? Lu Ming wasn't interested in talking to Xiang Prefecture. He directly released his aura. The people of the Xiangzhou stared with their eyes open wide. 7th level Divine Lord. Xiang Prefecture opened his mouth with a hoarse voice, his eyes full of disbelief. He clearly remembered that in the Resource Alliance agreement, Lu Ming was still just a 5th level Divine Lord. In the end, borrowing his pressure, Lu Ming successfully broke through and reached 6th level Divine Lord, then defeated him. But how long had it been since the Resource Alliance agreement? Just a few years, Lu Ming actually broke through again. When did Divine Lord Realm become so easy to break through? The key was that when Lu Ming was a 6th level Divine Lord, his battle strength was already very terrifying. This kind of prodigy, each breakthrough, his battle strength would have a tremendous increase. This was also to say that after Lu Ming broke through to 7th level Divine Lord, he was not Lu Ming's match at all. No wonder Lu Ming would say that he wasn't Lu Ming's match and didn't need to fight anymore. Indeed, he didn't need to fight anymore. Even if he made a move, it would also be seeking humiliation. At this moment, the battle intent on Xiang Prefecture's body disappeared without a trace. His eyes revealed a hint of dejection. Swoosh! Xiang Prefecture turned around and left, directly leaving Star Kun. His heart was already in a mess. He needed to find a place to adjust his mentality. The following great battle, he did not wish to watch anymore. Xiang Prefecture actually left? What's going on? Didn't even fight and he lost his fighting spirit. Truly a good-for-nothing. There was an uproar at the scene. Most people did not understand why Xiang Prefecture directly left. They did not know that Lu Ming's cultivation rose from 5th level Divine Lord to 7th level Divine Lord within a short few years. If they knew, wonder what their expressions would be? Myriad Dao Dragon Sovereign, Myriad Dao Dragon Sovereign. Chapter 3807. What a piece of trash. He's a disgrace to the Xiang race. On one of the seats in the crowd, a purple-robed young man sat in a carefree manner. A cold and disdainful voice came from his mouth. Many people looked at this person with grave gazes. They recognized who he was. He was Zitai Tsung, the prodigy of the Ziyuan race. The Ziyuan race was ranked 67th on the Eldritch 10,000 races list, which was stronger than the Xiang race. Legend had it that the Ziyuan race and the Xiang race used to be the same race a long time ago, but for some reason, the two races split and became the Ziyuan race and the Xiang race. Both races were ranked in the top 100 of the Eldritch 10,000 races list, which showed how terrifying the two races were. However, the Ziyuan race had always thought that they were the orthodox race and looked down on the Xiang race, which was why Zitai Tsang mocked them. After mocking them, Zitai Tsang stood up, and purple light burst out from his eyes. He stepped out and landed on the battle platform. Zitai Tsang is going to attack. Many people's eyes lit up. Zitai Tsang was also a quasi-emperor, but he was more famous and stronger than Pixiao Dao in the Xiang state. In particular, the powerful prodigies present all smiled. Zitai Tsang's attack was enough to test Lu Ming's strength, so they could respond. Boom! Zitai Tsang's body was enveloped by a layer of purple light, which was filled with a luxurious aura. It looked very similar to the Xiang state. He's going to attack. Quick! Many people took out their illusory divine jades and directly broadcast the battle live. Many people across the universe immediately received the news and opened their illusory divine jades to watch the battle. Mu Yun, make your move. Use all your strength. I want to suppress you in front of everyone. Zitai Tsung said in a domineering manner. Let's see if you have the ability to force me to use my full strength. Lu Ming said indifferently. How arrogant. Purple Sun Divine Art, purple chi from the east. Zitai Tsung shouted and clenched his fist. 2 wisps of purple chi flew over from the distant sky and were caught by Zitai Tsung. He was also using the purple chi from the east, which was exactly the same as the one in the Xiang state. It seemed that the 2 races were from the same origin. Kill! A pair of purple wings condensed behind Zitai Tsung's back. With a flap of his wings, his figure charged towards Lu Ming like a bolt of purple lightning. At the same time, the 2 strands of purple gas in his hands turned into 2 purple divine swords and slashed towards Lu Ming. Space was sliced apart like a piece of paper by the purple sword. Boom! Boom! Lu Ming's attack was very simple. He directly swung his fist to meet the attack. When he made his move, Lu Ming had already activated 5 times his combat power. Clang! Clang! Lu Ming's fists were like 2 sledgehammers as they smashed onto the purple divine sword. An earth-shattering boom erupted as the 2 figures rapidly retreated. However, Lu Ming only retreated 3 steps before he stabilized his figure. As for Zitai Tsung, he retreated explosively. He retreated several dozen steps before he staggered and stabilized himself. By the time he steadied himself, his face was already flushed red. In the first move, he was completely at a disadvantage. Your strength is not bad. You are slightly stronger than Xiang State. However, you are no match for me now. A thought flashed through Lu Ming's mind. Previously, Lu Ming had not used the gravity orb. He had only used his own strength to suppress Zitai Tsung. One should know that Xiang State could kill an ordinary first-layer Divine Emperor. Zitai Tsung was stronger than Xiang State. He could easily kill an ordinary first-layer Divine Emperor. He was a terrifying monster. He was far from being comparable to an ordinary person. However, Lu Ming had only used his own strength to suppress him. Purple Origin Divine Armor! Zitai Tsung shouted as his purple hair fluttered in the wind. An armor appeared on his body and wrapped around him. This was a secret treasure refined by the Xiang tribe. Once worn, it could increase one's combat power. It could increase one's offensive and defensive strength. Boom! After putting on the purple origin divine armor, Zitai Tsung charged toward Lu Ming with a violent aura, just like a violent dragon. The 2 purple swords in his hands were even more powerful. They whistled as they slashed towards Lu Ming. Interesting. Lu Ming's lips curled up. He did not use the gravity orb. Instead, he used his forbidden strength to fight back. Lu Ming rushed out. All the cells in his body were trembling. Apart from the great divine wind skill, he gathered all the offensive secret skills on his fists and threw them out continuously. The violent fist energy created a spatial storm and crushed towards Zitai Tsung. Boom! 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 The 2 of them clashed fiercely. In the blink of an eye, they had exchanged dozens of blows. The terrifying energy shocked many people. Many people who were watching the battle through the illusory divine jade turned solemn. Such combat power had completely surpassed the Divine Lord realm. Ordinary first-layer Divine Emperors would not be able to participate in such a battle. If they got close, they would be injured. He was already considered a top genius in the primitive universe. However, although Zitai Tsung's combat power had increased with the help of the purple origin divine armor, and could temporarily fight against Lu Ming, he was still no match for Lu Ming. After exchanging dozens of blows, Lu Ming's fist hit the purple origin divine armor on Zitai Tsung's chest. Lu Ming's fist contained hundreds of offensive secret skills and taboo powers. All of them erupted. Even though the purple origin divine armor had amazing defensive strength, it could not withstand the blow. The place where it was hit caved in. The terrifying power hit Zitai Tsung's body, causing him to groan. His body flew out like a cannonball and blood spurted out of his mouth. Lu Ming was at a disadvantage in one move. He would not give him another chance. His figure followed closely behind Zhi-Tai-Tsang, and his fists landed like a violent storm. Although Zhi-Tai-Tsang tried his best to block, he could only block a few blows. After that, he was hit continuously. His body flew out of the battle platform and he coughed out blood. Dozens of his bones were broken and cracks appeared on the purple origin divine armor. Zhi-Tai-Tsang had lost, and he had lost miserably. This made the faces of most of the spectators turn ugly. Mu Yun's combat power has increased again. He's even stronger than when he fought against Xiao Dao. Indeed. When he fought against Xiao Dao, he used 2 stone beads that could release gravity. However, he did not use them this time. This means that he still has a trump card. Everyone's faces became more solemn as they discussed. Who else wants to fight? Lu Ming stood in the arena and continued to issue challenges. His fighting spirit was soaring. Most of the youths present looked at each other. In the end, they all looked at a few people. Although there were many elites present, there were not many who could fight against Lu Ming. I'll do it! At that moment, a youth stood up. His long robe fluttered in the wind. It's Sha Lu 19 from the Sha-In tribe. Many people recognized this youth. The Sha-In tribe was ranked 56th on the Eldritch 10,000 tribes list. It was a tribe more powerful than the Purple Origin race. Sha Lu 19 from the Sha-In tribe was one of the best in the Sha-In tribe. He was very powerful and was very famous among the quasi-emperors in the Eldritch universe. This was because this person was close to being on the quasi-emperors list. Chapter 3808. The top 100 quasi-emperors list was not an official list. It was a list made by many people in their spare time. It imitated the Universe Genius list and listed 100 quasi-emperors. These 100 quasi-emperors could be said to be the ceiling of the quasi-emperors. Each one of them was terrifying and extremely powerful. Slaughter 19, who killed the Seal tribe, was a peerless genius who almost made it into the top 100 quasi-emperors list. Everyone looked hopeful. They hoped that killing 19 would be able to suppress Lu Ming. Slaughter 19 stepped into the air and landed on the battle platform, standing opposite Lu Ming. A cold and terrifying murderous intent permeated the air, causing the temperature of the entire world to drop. Mu Yun, very good. It's the first time I've seen such a battle prowess at the 7th level of the Divine Lord realm. I will suppress you and trample on your pride to make my name as an invincible one, helping me ascend to the Quasi-Emperor's top 100 list. Slaughter 19 clasped his hands behind his back, looking unparalleled in the world. Needless to say, this person was extremely conceited. Lu Ming almost laughed. This guy had not even made it into the top 100 quasi-emperors list. How could he be so confident? Therefore, Lu Ming said directly, "You haven't even made it into the top 100 quasi-emperors list, yet you are so arrogant. Aren't you afraid that others will laugh their heads off?" "What did you say?" Slaughter 19's face darkened. His murderous intent became even colder. "Well, I will make it simple. I said that you are a piece of trash. Do you understand?" Lu Ming said indifferently. "Boy, how dare you insult me? You are courting death." Slaughter 19 jumped up like a cat whose tail had been stepped on. He stared at Lu Ming with a ferocious expression. Dazzling rays of light burst forth from his body. 2 runes appeared on his palms and he blasted them toward Lu Ming. The 2 seals exuded terrifying fluctuations and contained terrifying power. They directly shattered the void and pressed toward Lu Ming. However, Lu Ming threw out 2 punches and shattered the 2 seals. However, this was only the prelude to Slaughter 19's attack. "Madra of slaughter, Madra of absolute death!" Shedding 19 roared and waved their hands. Countless talisman seals appeared around them, each of which glowed with divine light and surged with murderous intent. Boom! 9 consecutive talismans gathered together and shot toward Lu Ming. Its power was many times stronger than the previous 2 talismans. The Killing Imprint race was born with the ability to control the Killing Sigil. The godly energy they cultivated was the godly energy of slaughter. The origin secret technique they awakened was the slaughter imprint technique. When cultivated to the peak, they could slaughter everything under the heavens. It was incomparably terrifying. Wherever the slaughter sigil passed, the void was constantly destroyed. With the power of destruction, it charged towards Lu Ming. Boom! Boom! Lu Ming clenched his fists, trying to resist. However, when Lu Ming's fists collided with the slaughter midra, he felt waves of terrifying slaughter energy rushing towards him. Lu Ming's body shook violently, and he couldn't help retreating a few steps. Mu Yun has been pushed back. He's at a disadvantage. He's going to lose. When the surrounding elites saw that Lu Ming was forced to retreat, they jumped to their feet excitedly as if they had been injected with chicken blood. They were all supreme talents from various races, but during this period, they were suppressed by Lu Ming, a mere disciple of the Fengdu sword sect, to the point that they couldn't even lift their heads. They were extremely sullen. When they saw that Lu Ming was finally at a disadvantage, they naturally couldn't suppress their excitement. The slaughter midra of the slaughter midra tribe is indeed powerful, Lu Ming muttered to himself. He couldn't help but sigh at the terrifying talents of these races. Lu Ming might not be a match for Slaughter 19 without the help of the gravity orb. This wasn't because Lu Ming was too weak, but because his opponent was too strong. Where did Lu Ming hang out in the past? It was just the Taishu dynasty, a pseudo-universe level force. How many supreme talents could there be? The Taishu dynasty was nothing in the vast chaotic universe. It was just a speck of dust. And the opponent he was facing now was the top monstrous talent in the entire chaotic universe. In the chaotic universe, how many forces, how many supreme talents, it was hard to count clearly. As for Massacre 19, he was ranked near the top 100 among the countless demonic geniuses and quasi-emperor level demonic geniuses. This kind of person was also someone who had supreme opportunities and terrifying talents. His battle strength itself was abnormally powerful. It was naturally not that easy to deal with him. Lu Ming being able to fight against him as a 7th-level Divine Lord already showed the terror of the taboo body. But in the vast universe, there were countless supreme talents. Some people could even contend with the taboo body at the same level. It was also normal. Therefore, Slaughter 19 was very proud. He had the capital to be proud. Kill! After Slaughter 19 saw that Lu Ming was pushed back, his aura became even more violent. One after another, slaughter runes charged toward Lu Ming. Gravity orb! Lu Ming's heart stirred. With a wave of his hand, the gravity orb flew out. However, Lu Ming did not use 3 gravity pearls. He only used 2 of them. 2 gravity orbs were enough to deal with Slaughter 19. Buzz! The 2 gravity orbs emitted a powerful gravitational force, enveloping Slaughter 19. Break for me! Slaughter 19 roared. His Slaughter Seal technique burst forth. Several Slaughter Seal technique actually turned into slaughter swords, slashing through the void, actually wanting to break the gravitational force. He was clearly prepared. He had seen the battle between Lu Ming and Broken Knife before. Only Lu Ming had a stone orb that could release gravity and had been on guard. However, he still underestimated the gravity orb. Although the slaughter sword slashed open the void, it did not break the gravitational force. The powerful gravitational force pressed down on him, making his body tremble. The Slaughter Seal technique surrounding him also trembled. And the Slaughter Seal technique attacking Lu Ming also trembled, its speed slowing down a lot. Lu Ming's figure flashed, avoiding several Slaughter Seal technique attacks. His body was like a flickering shadow, charging towards Slaughter 19, both fists blasting out continuously. Kill! Slaughter 19 roared, using all his strength. The Slaughter Seal technique around him spun rapidly, shining with divine light. One after another, it blasted toward Lu Ming. Boom! 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 Lu Ming swung his fists, colliding head-on with the Slaughter Seal technique. In an instant, the two had exchanged dozens of blows. Finally, some of the Slaughter Seal technique could not withstand Lu Ming's attack and were blown apart by Lu Ming's fists. The Slaughter Seal technique was like a violent current, while Lu Ming went against the current, breaking through the current, approaching Slaughter 19. In the end, Lu Ming defeated Massacre 19's last Massacre seal with one punch. The violent fist force bombarded Massacre 19's body. Massacre 19 gave a muffled snort, and his body flew out of the fighting ring. He landed on the small island and coughed out mouthfuls of blood. He could not move at that moment. He was severely injured by Lu Ming's punch. And this was after Lu Ming showed mercy. Otherwise, he would definitely end up with his body and soul destroyed. Slaughter 19 was defeated. The faces of the geniuses present were extremely ugly. Even Slaughter 19 was no match for Lu Ming. Who else could be a match for Lu Ming? You're tuning into the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.